Yo yo yiggity yo. My name's Daniel. My channel is called Guilty Feet because I have no rhythm. Sorry. I thought I'd do a getting to know you kind of video and really give you a chance to understand exactly what I'm about. I have here the Guardian's list of the 100 best books of the 21st century. Love a book list. Love the Guardian. Probably typical Guardian reader. And I thought I'd go through the list, talk about the ones I've read, and that way you can kind of get to know whether this is something you'd like to see more of, and if they're among the ones I haven't read, if you have suggestions, recommendations, I would love to hear about it, so please feel free to comment. My goal is to respond if you are kind enough to leave me a comment, so thank you. Let's have a look. So I'll link to the actual list in the Guardian. I'll put that in the notes so you can follow along. But let's see what we got. At 100 is I Feel Bad About My Neck by Nora Ephron. I haven't read anything by Nora Ephron. She's a kind of essayist, comedy essays, I guess. I think I've seen a couple of the movies that she's written. I did read one book by her sister, which I was sent once. I didn't buy it. And I read it, and it was pretty awful. And it's not going to say that about many books in the list, but this one was. 99, Broken Glass by Alain Babankou. It's a Congolese writer. Don't know anything about. It was translated by Helen Stevenson in 2009. The book was originally published in 2005. Don't know anything about the book or Mr. Babankou. If you have Babankou, if you have good information about why I should be reading this, please let me know. 98, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Yeah, read, translated by Stephen T. Murray. Is that the? Yes, I guess he's the translator. Yeah, I read all those Lisbeth Salander books, both the Stieg Larsson original trilogy and then the 3 written by David Lagerkrantz after Larsson passed away. Yeah, like them, good stuff. 97, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I'm guessing that's on the list because it came out in 2000. This is 21st century. Azkaban is the best, so that must have come out before. Goblet of Fire, good, yeah. 96, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Broke me like it broke everybody else. Yeah, still makes me weep when I think about that book. 95, Chronicles, Volume 1 by Bob Dylan. Yeah, terrific celebrity memoir. I think I've lent my copy out recently. I picked it up when it came out in paperback, and yeah, really terrific. Dylan's great on the absurdity of fame. You know, one of the people that was legitimately described as the voice of his generation, and he actually talks about what that felt like, and people thinking he was the voice of his generation, and what it means to wake up in the morning, want to have a cup of coffee, and remember, oh wait, I'm the voice of my generation, and he's very good at sticking a pin in that bubble. 94, The Tipping Point by Gladwell. Yeah, so I've read a few Gladwell books, and they're super entertaining. He has a terrific way with an anecdote, and it's possible he's also full of shit. But you know, so I don't mind that because they're fun. But I don't think he's terribly rigorous scientifically. I think he has a great hypothesis which he then pursues and tries to prove with some really good stories. And I'm not sure any of it really holds up, but they're great reads. 93, Darkmans by Nicola Barker. I haven't read Darkmans. I have read Wide Open by Nicola Barker, which is there, that yellow one next to the 2 orange ones. And I don't remember much about it. I think it was okay, and I haven't. But it's the reason why I haven't read more Nicola Barker since then. So sorry, Darkmans. If you think it's worth reading, let me know. The Siege by Helen Dunmore is at 92. I have not read anything by Helen Dunmore. Please tell me why I'm wrong. 91, Light by M. John Harrison. I think you've got to be a little bit suspicious of people who use an initial for their first name. Like if you don't like your first name, let's say M. John Harrison's first name may be Melissa or Meredith or Mackenzie, and he just decided he wanted to go with M. John Harrison good luck to you. But you know what? You don't have to use your first name if you don't like it. Paul McCartney didn't. I haven't read it. I think it's like hard science fiction. Doesn't necessarily appeal to me, but let me know why I should be reading M. John Harrison, specifically Light. Number 90, Visitation by Jenny Erpenbeck, translated by Susan Banowski. I know nothing about Jenny Erpenbeck or this book, and I hadn't heard of it before I saw this list. Seems to be translated from the German. Don't know it. 89, Bad Blood by Lorna Sage. Kind of missed this. It's a memoir from 2000. Was a book du jour, and I missed it then. Probably missed the window. I'm not sure if I need to go back and rediscover it. Let me know. 88, Noughts and Crosses by Mallory Blackman. I'm not at the age, but we had a copy that may have got given away in the great children's book purge of 2019 when we put in all these shelves, and all my kids' books mostly got packed up and given away. So I never read it. I think two or three of them, either two or all of my kids did read it. I don't know if they went on and read the rest of the series. But I hear great things, and probably, I don't mind dipping into children's literature every now and then, but I'm not sure I'll go back to it. 87, Priest Daddy by Patricia Lockwood from 2017. Again, I think this was kind of a memoir du jour. Missed it. Not sure. I'll find it. 86, Adults in the Room by Yanis Varoufakis, and this is non-fiction, right? He's an economist, if I believe. I haven't read it. Probably would go over my head, and not a big. I may not be smart enough, and that this will be a recurring theme. 85, The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. What have I got? I got The Blind Watchman by Richard Dawkins here, which I read and messed me up a little bit. A terrific work. Haven't read The God Delusion, probably should. Blind Watchman was a great book. He's an important fellow, Dawkins, I believe. The Cost of Living by Deborah Levy is at 84 from 2018. I read Swimming Home by Deborah Levy. I know, again, she's an author that I know some people really admire. I struggled with Swimming Home. It's a slight volume that I did not super enjoy. It's about, if I remember, the whole thing turns out to be about post-traumatic stress and post-Holocaust issues that someone's having, and the whole thing is a metaphor for. Didn't love it. Don't know if I'll do The Cost of Living. Sorry, Deborah. 83, Tell Me How It Ends by Valeria Lucelli. This one's translated by Lucelli with Lizzie Davis, and I read this after I read The Lost Children Archive, which Lucelli actually wrote in English, and they're both outstanding work. The Lost Children's Archive is a novel. This is, I guess, non-fiction. It is a series of interviews that she did with the families of people in legal battles to stay in the United States, either asylum seekers, refugees, or just illegal immigrants. It's depressing, but tremendous bit of reportage, I think, even. Really recommend Tell Me How It Ends. 82, Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Either way you say it, the scariest book I've ever read in my life. If you don't find the notion of an alternate mother with buttons for eyes terrifying, then we're not going to be book buddies. Scary. 81, Harvest by Jim Crace. I've read a couple of Jim Crace books. It'll be behind me somewhere. We're in the A to D section, sort of A's starting up here and then going down to D's, and then the rest of the collection goes all the way down there all the way to Marcus Zusak at the end. So Jim Crace is somewhere behind me. Harvest was great. Yeah, like that very much. Number 80, Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. Also good. 1 second. That's must be somewhere there, right there, next to it. Exhalation was his recent collection. This is proper speculative fiction. What Mark Kermode always refers to as the science fiction of ideas. So it's not about lasers and transporters. It's tremendous stuff. and the in the collection is Arrival. Movie Arrival was based on one of the stories there. Great movie, and that's brought me to the collection, and now I've read both of his collections, which I think short stories he wrote over a couple of decades. He has a day job, but if you're interested, highly recommend it. At 79, The Spirit Level by Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett. Don't know this at all. Non-fiction. Tell me why I need to read The Spirit Level by Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett. I would have a problem with buying this book because I file things alphabetically. So a book that is written by two authors is a problem for me. Whether to file it under Wilkinson or Pickett. Yeah. So I have to either buy two copies or just not read it. 78, The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Yeah, I read this the Broken Earth trilogy, the one, all three parts won the Hugo Award in the years they came out, and for some reason Amazon had the paperbacks, each one brand new paperbacks for £2, and I bought all, each one of them I bought for £2 each, and didn't love them. The Fifth Season, the first one, is the best of the three. It's got this weird timeline structure which I didn't really get as I was going through, and then comes together in a neat way. I've described this as, and I don't read, so it's unfair description because I don't read fan fiction, but the Fifth Season reads like fan fiction. It was slightly amateurish and tonally all over the place. So the first one, great, and I read the other two, and things kind of get resolved, but not my favourite thing in the world. Signs Preceding the End of the World by Yuri Herrera, translated by Lisa Dillman at 77. Yuri Herrera is a Mexican author, and I haven't read this, but I read Kingdom Cons, a very slim novel, maybe 120 pages or so, that was on the long list a couple of years ago for the Tournament of Books, and I think I picked it up because I thought, well, it's 120 pages, I can get that under my belt and move on, and probably the slightness of it is means that it doesn't stuck very long in my mind. I haven't read any other Mexican literature, which is probably not a great thing. If this is another, if you think of other Mexican authors that I need to be reading, or if you think Signs Preceding the End of the World is a better example of Herrera's work, let me know. 76, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman is a work of absolute genius, and in contrast to the Gladwell sort of great anecdotes but iffy science, Kahneman is a Nobel Prize winner, first of all. Gladwell not winning a Nobel Prize anytime soon. Kahneman is a genius, and the book has stayed with me, and I've lent it to a bunch of people, and I think my copy is somewhere else, not here. 75, Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead, another Nobel Prize winner. This time Kahneman won for economics. Olga Tokarczuk won for literature last year, the year before. This is translated by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. I haven't read Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead. I read Flights, which was a terrific book, but a weird read. I read it this year, and Flights, which gives one of these beautiful, austere Fitzcarraldo editions, like there's one there, the all blue cover, that's Pond by Claire Louise Bennett, and Flights is like that in that beautiful cover that Fitzcarraldo do. It's discombobulating to read it in this year because Flights is all about movement and through Europe, and people leaving one country, moving to another country, and it's about that sense of freedom and that decision and that the agency that one has to pick up your life and go somewhere else. And I read it in this year of pandemic when none of us have been able to go anywhere. So it was, but great, good, and the Guardian claims that Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead is more accessible than Flight. So if I get a chance, I may pick it up. 74, Days Without End by Sebastian Barry. Haven't read any Sebastian Barry. Tell me why I'm wrong. 73, Nothing to Envy by Barbara Demick. This looks like narrative non-fiction from 2009. Don't know it. I'm not familiar with it. About North Korea. May have missed its window. If you think this is superior work of narrative non-fiction, please let me know. 72, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff. Actually ordered this from Book Depository and never arrived and got my refund, and now haven't read it. So apologies, Shoshana. 71 is Jimmy Corrigan, The Smartest Kid on Earth. Guardian always likes to sling in a graphic novel there. I read a lot of graphic novels, a lot of comic books, and sort of, Steve Donoghue makes differentiates between comic books and graphic novels. Very worthy. I read both. I love comics, and I try to make myself feel better about reading comic books by reading graphic novels. I read Jimmy Corrigan, The Smartest Kid on Earth, when it won the Guardian First Book Award, and it's very dry and dense, and even the artwork is distancing and not super pleasing to the eye. So struggled with it. Don't love it. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Haven't gone back and read more. Chris Ware afterwards. Sorry. Number 70, Notes on a Scandal by Zoe Heller. Missed it. This was I think might have been shortlisted for the Booker Prize back in the days from 2003, and I didn't read it, and I haven't seen the movie, and sorry. At 69, The Infatuations by Javier Marias from 2011, translated by Margaret Jewel Costa in 2013. Apologies for butchering everyone's names and the pronunciation. Don't know it. If someone tell me why I should be more infatuated with The Infatuations, I'd love to hear about it. 68, The Constant Gardener by John le Carré. No, I haven't read it. I believe this was this the movie that Rachel Weisz won an Oscar for? What was the other one? What did she? Anyway, I've only read one John le Carré book. I read the first Smiley, The Call of the Dead, and I found this beautiful old penguin green crime thing, which I don't have because I just lent it to someone this week who was looking for a good spy thing. Le Carré always seemed a bit mumsy to me because the original Tinker Tailor adaptation with Alec Guinness came out in the 70s when I was too young to want to watch it, and it was the kind of thing my parents watched when I would go to bed. So in my mind I always put Le Carré in that sort of thing that parents do more than I would do, and so I never read it. I have a good friend who's a big Le Carré fan, and maybe one day I'll go back and read the rest of the Smileys, but probably not The Constant Gardener. 67, The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. So I've got here, this direction, yes, that's the Regeneration trilogy by Pat Barker. That's the first two in paperback, and then The Ghost Road, which won the Booker Prize that year, in hardback. Tremendous. I mean, that's 25 years since I read those, maybe, and I haven't gone back and read Pat Barker. Silence of the Girls came out in 2018. I heard great things, and if you think I should read it, let me know. 66 is 7 Brief Lessons on Physics by Carlo Rovelli. And I remember the first time I looked at this list, I actually started looking for this book. It's a 96-page overview of modern physics. So, what could be more appealing to add to my collection than a 96-page book, which I could definitely get through in an afternoon, and then say that I've read this book about modern physics. And it's one of those things where I'm too mean to pull the trigger, because if I found it for 5, 6, 7 quid, $6, $7, $8, I would have bought it and read it, and I think I must have only found copies for like £15 or something, which would just seem like too much for a 96 page book, and so I haven't read it. Tell me why I'm wrong. 65, Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. 1 second, let me really, it's a brilliantly written book, page turning. I couldn't put it down, and it's manipulative and mean-spirited and dumb as a box of frogs. So really, very few books make me angry and annoyed that I've read them, and Gone Girl was one of them. But astonishing, it deserves all the sales that she got, because it does what it's supposed to do. I just really hated it for doing it to me. 64, On Writing by Stephen King. I don't have any Stephen King books. I haven't read any Stephen King books. I'd probably be too afraid to sleep with one of them in the apartment. On Writing is probably the closest I've got to buying and reading a Stephen King book, but frankly it scares the pajamas out of me. 63, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. Outstanding piece of narrative nonfiction, really highly recommended. If you don't read nonfiction but you think you would like to try nonfiction, this is the kind of thing that would, I think, help you get into nonfiction. But either way, it's just an astonishing, smart, well-researched, important read. 62, Mother's Milk by Edward St. Aubyn, which is the fourth of the 5 Patrick Melrose. I read all 5 this year in the 2-volume TV tie-in. So I've got Benedict Cumberbatch on the cover, and the first one had the first 3 books in it, and they're slight each. So each of the books was under 200 pages. So even 3 together in one book, and I read them one after the other. And I read all 3 books, and then later in the year read the last 2, which came also each one. So each of the volumes that I read was maybe 500-600 pages long. Really, really fine piece of work, and I don't mind having a TV tie-in. I didn't watch the TV show. I decided to read the books because I'd heard such great things about the TV, and because that's the thing. While I like TV, books is what I do. So if I think there is something worth reading rather than watching, I'm happy to get the book and happy to get the TV tie-in. I like Benedict Cumberbatch, and it's an astonishing set of 5 books. I don't know how I missed them as they were being published, but I don't mind having read them in the way I did 3 and then 2. Real growth, real pathos, fine writing, some of it very funny, some of it utterly tragic, and just really harsh view of parenting and the self-examination that's required to come through what Melrose goes through, which I think is fairly transparently autobiographical. I don't care how much or how little. That's not interesting. Let's talk about Melrose, not about the author. But to come through what he goes through, to come through addiction, and to be so funny, so hard on himself. Great. Really enjoyed those. 61, The House of Grief by Helen Garner. Don't know anything about Helen Garner or The House of Grief. She is, according to Guardian, one of Australia's greatest living writers. Apologies, Australia. 60, Dart by Alice Oswald is a book-length poem. Well, I don't mind a book-length poem, but I am not familiar with Dart by Alice Oswald. Came out in 2002. Tell me more. 59, The Beauty of the Husband by Anne Carson, one of Canada's most celebrated poets. Again, apologies, Canada, I have not read Anne Carson. I've read some Canadians, I believe. Yeah, I mean, I'm not adverse to reading people from Canada. 58, Post-War by Tony Judt. I haven't read any Tony Judt. This is not anything to do with Tony Judt, but I just read this year Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. So in my head, I put Tony Judt in that category of slightly not mainstream, but still valuable historians. I don't know. I haven't ever sought this out. Maybe if I came across it somewhere, I might say, "Wow, Daniel, you should probably read that." But I haven't so far. 57, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. Yeah, love Chabon. In fact, up there, that's the Chabon stack. That's Telegraph Avenue at the bottom, and then some others. And Cavalier and Clay, I think, was my first Chabon. Big fan. Try to read each of his novels as they come out. And one day I might tell you the story about that time I yelled at Michael Chabon and his wife, Ayla Waldman, in a crowded theatre full of people. Not my finest hour. 56, Underland by Robert Macfarlane. Haven't read it, heard good things. This is a 2019 book. Maybe I've missed it, but don't know if I'll come back to it. 55, The Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan is a food book. according to this, from 2006. I'm not a big foodie, which may seem counterintuitive to you, but yeah, don't read a lot of food writing. Women in Power at 54. Women in Power by Mary Beard. I haven't read Mary Beard. I think she was the scholar in residence on a cruise my mum went on, but I haven't read it. 53. True History of the Kelly Gang by Peter Carey, which was his second Booker winner. Love a bit of Peter Carey. Read Illywacker. Was the first of his novels that I read back in the late 80s, and then lent that copy to someone. Don't have it anymore. My mum sent me a copy of Oscar and Lucinda, which was his first Booker winner, which I have here. She sent me that year it came out, which I guess 89, 90. I was on my year off after high school. I remember that coming in an envelope to me where I was, which was a treat. And I've read most of his novels since then. They get weirder. And The True History of the Kelly Gang is probably one of the more straightforward ones. Like The Tax Inspector was super weird. And what else I got? Yeah. But good enough. Small Island, 52, Small Island by Andrea Levy. Yeah, I liked this book, but it didn't blow me away when it came out. And then I remember my late father read it, and he didn't read a lot of fiction, but he somehow, I don't know how this book showed up in, this was after I'd left home, so he had his own copy. I didn't give it to him, and he read it and was raving about it, and then called me to rave to me about this book. So I now remember it fondly because I remember how much he had enjoyed it. 51, Brooklyn by Colm Tavine. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I haven't read Brooklyn. I didn't see the movie. I read one book by his, I think was shortlisted for the Booker Prize a few years ago, The Testament of Mary, maybe. Thin book, and wasn't enough to leave an impression. But I haven't read Brooklyn. 50 is Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood, which is there. Yeah, so I read a bit of Atwood, starting with The Handmaid's Tale, which I read in 87, right up to the Testaments, which I read last year, and in the middle of that, Oryx and Crake. And after I read Oryx and Crake, I did not read the second and third book in the Mad Adam trilogy because it went over my head. I didn't particularly enjoy it, and I very much have enjoyed her other standalone novels, like and I got right there. You can see there's Alias Grace and The Blind Assassin are there, although not The Robber Bride, and I liked both of those. And then Oryx and Crake I sort of came to a screeching halt. 49, Why Be Happy When You Could Be Normal by Jeanette Winterson. Haven't read this. I've got one Jeanette Winterson book here, which is either Sexing the Cherry or Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, and without going all the way down to the W's, I can't remember which one it is. It may be Sexing the Cherry, or it may be Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, but I haven't read any other Jeanette Winterson. 48, Night Watch by Terry Pratchett. Not read any Terry Pratchett at all. I kind of, I was probably not at the right stage in my life when those broke, but I did buy the first Discworld novel to give to my kids, because I thought, well, this will be the kind of fun thing that they might get into when they were 10, 11, 12, 13. I thought that might be, and I believe it's The Colour of Magic, and brought it home and offered to them. I thought, as I still do, even though I don't, they've moved beyond children's literature, but I would often read things that I had bought for them, and I looked at the first page of The Colour of Magic, and that there was a character in the Fast Show who was, in the way they would identify him as a certain kind of idiot would be that he would talk in a way that was, when he ordered a drink at the pub, instead of asking for a pint of beer, he would say, "A flagon of your finest ale, stout yeoman," and that was the indicator that he was a moron, or whatever. And the first page of Colour of Magic was sense. I got the sense that the entire book was going to be people calling other people stout yeoman, and I couldn't, and so I didn't, and I never have. and I know Neil Gaiman, a big fan, and collaborated with Terry Pratchett, and I love Neil Gaiman and haven't read any Terry Pratchett, including Nightwatch. 47, Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. I've got the 2-volume version of Persepolis. Great work, recommended. 46, Human Chain by Seamus Heaney. I haven't read this. The only Seamus Heaney I have is his Beowulf, which is good, but I don't know this work at all. 45, Levels of Life by Julian Barnes. Yeah, I haven't read that. My history with Barnes goes back to... I've got a copy of Flaubert's Parrot, which I got when it came out. Must be somewhere up here. No, that's Ballard. Then Barnes must be there. Here's Barnes. So that, I think, is Flaubert's Parrot. And I started it, like I'm talking about, when I was 18, 19 years old, and never read it, and kept it. I couldn't get through it. And about 10, 15 years later, I eventually said, okay, I've got this book and I'm going to read it, and I'd read it. And I never read The History of the World in 10.5 chapters, which was his breakout book at that time. I think Flaubert's Parrot came out before that. And then skipped him until he won the Booker, and read that, and I think I've read one or two. Oh, Arthur and George. Loved Arthur, which is not here. That's why I'm not remembering it, because I must have lent it to somebody. Arthur and George is a great book, really fun read, and love that. And then this I haven't read. Levels of Life seems to be a grief memoir about his late wife, Pat Kavanagh. I'm all about a grief memoir. Don't mind those at all. So I might, at some point, pick this up. 44, Hope in the Dark by Rebecca Solnit. I haven't read Hope in the Dark. I've read her essay collection, Men Explain Things to Me, which is an outstanding essay and terrific collection, and gave that to my daughter, who I think has kept it. But I've looked for copies of Hope in the Dark. I think if I find one at the right price, I would pick it up, because she's a tremendous, clear thinker, and I thought was at least the essay collection I did read was really super. 43 is Citizen, an American Lyric by Claudia Rankine. Yeah, loved it. Just an amazing section in the middle about Serena Williams, and just an absolutely brutal breakdown of the racism that she has been subjected to. Not mean to laugh at any of this, but the book is just tremendously sharp and clinical about this, and beautifully written. Recommended. 42, Moneyball by Michael Lewis. Loved Moneyball, loved the book, loved the movie. I've read other Michael Lewis since then. Also great with an anecdote, I guess, in that Gladwell tradition, although he's writing different kind of stuff. But Moneyball was a great read. 41, Atonement by Ian McEwan. Fantastic, outstanding novel, absolutely one of the greats, and one of the reasons why I continue to pick up what they call literary fiction, because when you have an experience like I did with Atonement, it makes you want to try something else. And I've read a fair bit of McEwan, and it remains probably my favourite, more than Enduring Love, which is a hard book. His early stuff I didn't read. Maybe one day I'll talk about my experiences with people, a school teacher in particular, reading The Cupboard Man to us in class, A Cupboard Man, and another short story of his called Pornography, which scared the bejabbers out of me. But Atonement is outstanding. At 40 is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. Yeah, love that. I read that when it came out. There it is, The Year of Magical Thinking. Love a bit of Didion. You can say that I've dabbled in Didion. I've got here Slouching Towards Bethlehem, which is I think her first collection of essays from about 50 years ago, and it's just astonishing. And I've ordered a copy of the White Album, which is waiting for me at my mum's in London if I ever get over there again. 39, White Teeth by Zadie Smith. Yes, read all of Smith's novels and that collection of essays she put out this year, Intimations, which is brilliant. She's amazing. 38, The Line of Beauty by Alan Hollinghurst. That was a Booker Prize winner. Just a great, a big, quite a chunky 500-page novel about the Thatcher years, and just really great, sexy, novel that was very satisfying. And there's a scene where the protagonist ends up at a dinner party, ends up, I think, dancing with Thatch. I hope I'm not misremembering that, because I'm saying it's very memorable. But yeah, it was a terrific book. 37, The Green Road by Anne Enright. I read, I think she won the Booker. I've got that down here. For The Gathering. And I like an Irish novelist. Did not get on with The Gathering, and so haven't read The Green Road, and probably won't. 36, Experience by Martin Amis, which came out in 2000, which I bought in hardback because I remember, for whatever reason, I think it was in the days when they used to have algorithm glitches. This was a relatively new hardback. I think it was before it came out in paperback, and for some reason Amazon was offering it at 75% off. So I have the hardback version from 2000, which I must have paid like £5 for. Felt really pleased with myself, and it's an outstanding book. I know Amos is not everyone's cup of tea. I happen to like him. I've read a lot of his fiction and his non-fiction, and Experience is really good. And there's this whole section where he talks about his cousin, who was one of the victims of, I think, Fred and Rosemary West, and it's just a fine piece of writing. Really excited about his new book, which again I have bought and is waiting for me at my mum's, and I'm supposed to be there this week, and flying to London no longer an option. At 35, The Hare with the Amber Eyes by Edmund de Waal. Don't know it, not familiar with it. Tell me why I should read Edmund de Waal. At 34, Outline by Rachel Cusk, and I've never read Rachel Cusk, and I don't, tell me I'm wrong. 33, Fun Home by Alison Bechdel, which is right here. I don't know if you can see. Oh, you can't. It's just out of shot. There, Fun Home by Alison Bechdel, and Are You My Mother by Alison Bechdel. Yeah, Fun Home's terrific. And I had a very great joy a couple of years ago on a work trip to New York. I went to see the musical on Broadway of Fun Home, when you could still do those things and they're still happening. Fun Home's outstanding, and the musical's outstanding. It's got this great song called Ring of Keys, which is performed by the young Alison Bechdel, and great song about finding out you're a lesbian. Really tremendous. 32, The Emperor of All Maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee. I haven't read. Maybe I missed the windows from about 10 years ago, but it's the kind of thing I could have read and haven't. But I just wonder, Siddhartha, that's a name, right? If you're called Siddhartha, I mean, do your friends call you Sid? Or you insist? No, I prefer Siddhartha, please. All right, Mr. Mukherjee. Great name, and I haven't read it, but I wish I had. Great name for a book as well, The Emperor of All Maladies, terrific. 31, The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. Another outstanding book that I would recommend to anyone. Was super important. It is important to me for helping me understand things that I know not enough about. Really, I found super important and recommend to lots of people. Number 30, The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. Yeah, I mean, it is as good as everyone says it is. If you haven't read The Underground Railroad, you should. Whitehead is the author of his generation, or at least an author of his generation, and I'm pretty much there for anything else he does. Nickel Boys was good, not as good as The Underground Railroad, and I've read one of his books about playing poker, and years ago I read The Intuitionist, which is about a woman who fixes elevators. 29, A Death in the Family by Carl Irva Knausgaard, translated by Don Bartlett. I've read all of them, 6 volumes. If you're not a Knausgaard person, that's fine. But I think in 100 years, people will be talking about the Min Camp, the My Struggle series, like we talk about Proust, La Recherche de Domperdou, which I have never got all the way through. I've got 3 volumes here of a 5 or 6 volume set, and that stopped there. But I have read all 6 volumes of Knausgaard's books, including the last one, which is 1,400 pages with 450 pages about Hitler in the middle of it, and I get it. Every part of it was astonishing to me, and I'm sorry more people won't read it. I understand why they won't read it, but I was on board from the first volume and stayed with it, picked them up as soon as I could. Rapture by Carol Ann Duffy, who was poet laureate, I believe. I know, and but I haven't read this book, another book length poem. I don't mind a book length poem because usually they're quick reads. At least I read, if I'm going to pick up a book length poem, I'll read it from cover to cover. Not familiar with Rapture. Tell me why I'm wrong. 27 is Hateship, Friendship, Courtship, Loveship, Marriage by Alice Munro, which I have read. But again, Canada, don't remember much about it. She won the Nobel Prize after that, and have not gone back and read any more Munro, and they haven't stayed with me in the way that, say, some other short story collections have. 26 is Capital in the 21st Century by Thomas Piketty, translated by Arthur Goldhammer. I have not read this because I'm reasonably sure that I'm not smart enough to read it. I think it's one of those shows up on one of those lists of books that people buy and don't read, so I saved myself the bother. 25, Normal People by Sally Rooney. I know it's a polarizing thing. Read Normal People, loved Normal People. Came to it after reading Conversation with Friends, which I did not get on with at all. So I only bought Normal People because I needed to make up an online order and have enough for free shipping. So I bought it. It was still in hardback, but it was cheaper than anyway, and got it the second time. So I didn't conversation. I mean, she's not good at titles. Let's say that about Sally Rooney. The Conversation with Friends, I remember thinking there was not a single conversation between friends in the entire book which felt in any way relatable or normal or realistic, and I found it quite frustrating. And Normal People, for whatever reason, clicked with me, and although I am no longer of the generation that Ms. Rooney is writing, or is of, but I found it moving, and I was engaged, and really like Normal People, and will probably read more Rooney. 24, Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. A Visit from the Goon Squad. Enunciate your words. Loved Visit from the Goon Squad, absolutely, for all the reasons that everyone else loves it, including the PowerPoint chapter in the middle. Totally worked for me. I haven't read anything else by Jennifer Egan. Manhattan Beach, I think, was the one that came out, and I guess if I run out of books and found it, I might pick it up. But it's one of those occasions where you read something so good by an author, and however much you love it, I don't feel a burning need to read more by Jennifer Egan, although of course I may. 23, The Noonday Demon by Andrew Solomon, which I'm utterly unaware. I mean, I've never seen all those words put together in a sentence before I encountered this list. I know nothing about Andrew Solomon. This book's from 2001. I know nothing about Andrew Solomon or his work, The Noonday Demon. If you think this is something I should correct, please let me know. 22 is 10th of December by George Saunders. Well, I've read all George Saunders collections, and he's terrific. I remember the 10th of December, which was probably his breakout book, and won an award in America, or the National Book Critics or something, or whatever. And I remember thinking, well, this is more of the same. It didn't wow me in a way. Say, a couple of his earlier collections wowed me, and then when Lincoln in the Bardo, and I know this list is from 2019, so it may predate Lincoln in the Bardo, but when Lincoln in the Bardo came out in the fanfare, this is George Saunders' first novel after winning short stories for the 21st century. Lincoln in the Bardo really knocked my socks off. I mean, it's not. I don't even know if it is a novel. It's sort of a screenplay to a movie that you would never see, and it's just weird and wonderful, and in all the good ways. 10th of December was okay, I think, like George Saunders. 21, Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, translated by Harari with John Purcell and Chaim Watzman. Yeah, read this. Love Sapiens. My copy is lent it to a friend of mine's kid. Love Sapiens. Specifically, love probably the first 2/3, 3/4 of it. I loved it. It made me think of history in ways that I had never considered before. Parts of history. I was less enamoured of the last section where he looks forwards. I didn't buy into his necessarily the speculation about what's to come, but really, really great read. Number 20 is Life After Life by Kate Atkinson, which is there, up there, on top with A God in Ruins as well. Yeah, like Kate Atkinson, read her years ago. Read her the first two novels, and then sort of drifted away from her and came back for Life After Life, which was a huge, huge book. And then I've come back now and started reading the Jackson Brodie books, which I think I saw the BBC adaptations but never read them, and shame because it's right up my street. So I'm back into Kate Atkinson, and Life After Life worked for me. 19, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is outstanding. I read it, my wife read it, then one by one we gave it to the kids as they were becoming independent readers, and each one of them got it, and each one of them read it and got it. And then we went to see the one time we were all in London together, and we went to see the stage production that had transferred from the National when it was on in the West End, and it's an amazing production. So everything about this book I loved. My copy seems to have gone missing, which not missing it means I've lent it to somebody. And last year I read Haddon's book, The Porpoise, which was not great. Super weird and not terribly satisfying, but The Curious Incident, Christopher Boone and his touching hands with his father is about as poignant and as wonderful a book. Number 18, The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein. I have not read The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein. I read No Logo by Naomi Klein. Then I used to comment on her Facebook page where she would have interesting discussions. Then I got blocked from her Facebook page, and now I'm not that keen to read any more Naomi Klein. Sorry. The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Yeah, I love The Road. I mean, it's miserable and brutal, but it's a fine piece of work as far as I'm concerned. I read the Crossing, the Border. So the Crossing is the name of the book. The trilogy, the Border trilogy, starting with All the Pretty Horses, Cities of the Crossing, and Cities of the Plain. I think is the trilogy, and those early in my reading life were formative. That said, I haven't read the classic McCarthy, so I haven't read No Country for Old Men or Suttree or Blood Meridian, and maybe one day I probably should, because I've had good experiences with each of his books that I have read. 16, The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. Yeah, I am a Franzen fanboy. I read The Corrections and Freedom and Purity, and I've read a bunch of his non-fiction as well, and I get that he rubs people up the wrong way, and he's a white bloke writing great big novels, but I like them. 15, The Sixth Extinction. The Sixth Extinction is a tongue twister by Elizabeth Colbert. Don't know it. Don't know Elizabeth Colbert. Don't know The Sixth Extinction. Apologies. 14, Fingersmith by Sarah Waters was the first Sarah Waters I read. I skipped Tipping the Velvet and Affinity. Wasn't a big fan of historical fiction, and sort of didn't really get what was going on there, and then did pick up Fingersmith, and it's tremendous. Just a fun, twisty, really excellent piece of work. And since then I've read The Paying Guests, which also very much enjoy, but Fingersmith is the one that I recommend to people, and I haven't gone back and read the earlier books, but yeah, Sarah Waters, great stuff. 13, Nickel and Dimed by Barbara Ehrenreich. Didn't read it, probably missed the window. Good piece of narrative non-fiction as far as I understand. It was on my radar a couple of times and never pulled the trigger, so sorry. 12, The Plot Against America by Philip Roth from 2004. Love Plot Against America. I was a bit of a Roth fanboy back then. I came back, I read Portnoy's Complaint years ago, and then came back to Roth for American Pastoral, which was amazing. And then the American Pastoral goes into I Married a Communist, and then The Human Stain, and so by the time I got to Plot Against America, I was reading him, reading each of his new books as they came out in that late burst of creative energy he had. And Plot Against America is, listen, I know that he's not necessarily a great human being, but The Plot Against America is a very powerful piece of work. I haven't watched the miniseries, but with the America that we are currently experiencing, I think the idea, this speculation about what America might have been like had Lindbergh become president and America taken a more isolationist path, is frighteningly parallel with the expiring administration. 11, My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, the first of the Neapolitan novels, translated by Anne Goldstein. Yeah, loved all the Neapolitan novels. Just to carrying on from the Bechdel, the idea that there is so much literature about men talking to other men, and women appearing in the periphery, and the Neapolitan Quartet is a book about women and women's relationships with each other and their friendships and their rivalries, and it is a sharpness that you don't often encounter outside of Tolstoy in terms of how people work and behave. I love them. Number 10 is Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which I have read. Yes, that's the one I've read. I haven't read Purple Hibiscus, and I haven't read Americana. Following all the recent revelations, I probably wouldn't. I would only pick them up secondhand if I do decide to read them, but it's a good excuse not to. Half Yellow Sun was good, and this is such a lazy commentary, but I just found it 100 pages too long, and I get it's terrible, cheap thing to say. I couldn't write 100 pages of a novel, but it is probably just 100 pages too long, not just too long. Good. 9, Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell, which is probably my least favourite David Mitchell. I became a big fan of David Mitchell. I might not have done if this was all I'd read. It was the first one I read. Somehow I got to Black Swan Green after this and loved it. And that's probably my favourite David Mitchell. And then, since then, I've read Thousand Autumns of Jacob Desert and Bone Clocks and Slade House, and just this year read Utopia Avenue, and I'm fully on board with Mitchell. And Cloud Atlas, probably my least favourite, less accessible, sort of more harder to work out what's going on, but recommend Mitchell fully. Autumn by Ali Smith is 8th on this list, and love it. Liked Ali Smith before then, loving this quartet. I'm 3 books in. I wish I've got them in the paperback, and the hardbacks are gorgeous. I wish I'd started in hardback, but now I'm waiting until next summer for the last paperback of summer. So I just read Spring, which was not as good as Autumn and Winter, but I get it. I'm on board. Yeah. 7, Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Yeah, my copy is out with a friend. It's absolutely worthy. Tremendous bit of writing, an essay that Coates wrote to his son. That I recommend you read. 6, The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman. Yeah, read each of these. Again, I was older, so I bought them. I don't think my kids read them in the end, but I found them a terrific work, a terrific counterpoint, let's say, to Narnia, which is where I started when I was 8, 9 years old, 7, 8 years old, I don't know when. And this is a book about not believing in God, not having faith, and disgust at organised religion, and a person appalled at anyone dumb enough to have faith. And I, as someone who has believed in God, I still find these books absolutely outstanding and worthwhile. They work as an adventure. They work as a rebuttal to Narnia or wherever, or C.S. Lewis, and I just, I'm on board, and I haven't watched the shows because I'm old, but the books were tremendous. Number 5, Austerlitz by W.G. Sebald, translated by Anthea Bell. Yeah, I read this and went over my head and haven't gone back and read more Sebald. Sorry. 4, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. So yeah, read everything I can get my hands on by Ishiguro. Started way back when with The Remains of the Day, which I think is his greatest and one of the great novels in my reading life. My son has my copy right now. Never Let Me Go. It's one of those things where I don't know why this book has had the impact it has on so many, and this has been people's way into Ishiguro. It's certainly more accessible. After It Remains the Day, we had When We Were Orphans and The Unconsoled one. Which one came first? Both very dense, hard to find something to cling on to in those novels, and I read them both. And then, so Never Let Me Go was a return to something a little more a nicer way in, and I get that, and it's a great book. I guess for this list, Remains the Day is pre-2000, but yeah, Remains the Day is the reason why I will read everything that Ishiguro ever writes. Number 3, Second-Hand Time by Svetlana Alexievich, translated by Bela Shayevich, Belarusian Nobel laureate that I am utterly unfamiliar with. I've never read Alexievich, and if you think I should pick up Second-Hand Time, please let me know, because it's the kind of thing I might, if the right person said to me, Daniel, you're an idiot, read this book. 2, Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. If you tell me, Daniel, you're an idiot, read this book, I might still struggle. I read one, Marilyn Robinson, because I'm familiar with the enormous support that she has and the love, the adoration that she generates in people. And I read Housekeeping. It's a slight book, 200 pages, 220 maybe, and really, really struggled with it, really had to wade through it like a pond of treacle, to the point where I'm just disincentivized to read more Robinson, and everything about her should be appealing to me. I love this revisited world. I love the fact that she's come back over time to some of the same characters, and I just, after that experience, I can't generate the enthusiasm, and maybe one, I don't know, I think Robinson is just going to be on the outside of my reading life. And number 1 on this list of top 100 books of the 21st century from The Guardian is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, which, get it. I mean, it might not be number 1 on my list, but I struggled with Wolf Hall and then got it and loved it. Bring Up the Bodies, I think, is more accessible and love that. I'm waiting. I've got them both in these Fourth Estate paperbacks. I'm hoping that The Mirror and the Light will come out in a similar sized matching paperback version. Probably won't, but I'm going to wait. It's 900 pages. I can wait for the paperback, but I will read it because, again, one of the great works of 21st century, one of the great achievements of 21st century literature, I think, will be that trilogy. And that is the end of this list. A couple of things I think that, off the top of my head, that immediately noticed weren't on it. One of them I checked, and because I wasn't sure if it was in the 21st century or not, is Life of Pi by Jan Martel, which to me, again, one of the great reading experiences and discoveries of the joys of picking up a book about which I knew very little going in, but had a profound impact on me, and I'm sure it'll come up again. So Life of Pi should be on here. And then the other one I think I recommend as one of my great discoveries would be Salvage the Bones by Jesmyn Ward. I think an outstanding novel, set just before the weeks leading up to the devastation that caused by Hurricane Katrina, and just enormously human piece of work with a couple of set pieces in it which were breathtaking and have stayed with me, and which I go back I've revisited a couple of times just to those 10, 12 pages to see how she did that. So yeah, I would add those in. But other than that, I think that's, we've got very little and quite a lot of good things. And please, if there's stuff that I mentioned, or if you have another favourite book from the 21st century that you think I should know about, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you. That's an hour. God bless you if you're still here. Take care.